Incompetent! Vivian's scream cracked through the marble foyer like a whip, making the chandelier's crystals tremble. Did you hear that, Caleb? I said you are a disgrace to the surname you stole from my daughter. Caleb tasted the bitter bile and aged whiskey rising in his throat. He was on his knees, not because he wanted to pray, but because his legs had given out. Before him, the brushed steel monstrosity, the impenetrable Sterling family vault, remained closed, cold and silent. He punched the metal door. Pain exploded in his knuckles, but it was a dull, distant ache. The real pain was in the eyes of the 300 people around him, the city's elite, men in tuxedos and women in dresses that cost more than the house where Caleb grew up, all looking at him with that mix of pity and disgust they reserve for failed new money. "Open it, damn it!" Caleb growled, his voice thick. He tried to type the password again. 08-19-1985, his late wife's birth date. Beep, beep, beep. Red light. Access denied. Pathetic. Vivian's voice came from above, from the small stage where she reigned with a champagne flute in her hand. She wore black, as if in mourning, but her smile was celebratory. "Ladies and gentlemen, behold the great businessman Caleb. He bought my house, he bought my husband's furniture, but he cannot buy the soul of this mansion. The vault knows Caleb. It knows you are a fraud." Laughter rippled through the hall. It started low, polite, but soon spread like a virus. They were laughing at him. The sound pierced Caleb's ears like needles. Heat rose up his neck, burning his ears. He was sweating, his Italian suit sticking to his back, the alcohol blurring his vision. He needed to open that damn door. All the money he had left was in there. The promissory notes, the bonds. If he didn't open the vault today, he would be on the street tomorrow. And Vivian knew it. She was savoring every second of his downfall. Old man Sterling must be rolling over in his grave. A guest whispered loud enough to be heard. Caleb lifted his head, his eyes bloodshot with rage and despair. He needed to take it out on someone. He needed a target, someone smaller than him, someone weaker. That's when he saw the grey figure. In the corner of the foyer near a golden pillar, a figure was trying to blend into the wall. It was Melody. Her uniform was 2 sizes too big for her thin body, the rolled-up sleeves revealing slender, calloused arms. She was crouched, frantically picking up the shards of a glass that someone had kicked away. She trembled, not from cold, but from terror. She knew that to those people, the cleaner was not a person but part of the furniture. If they noticed her, it would be to complain. But Caleb noticed her. "You!" His shout came out hoarse, animalistic. Melody froze. A shard of crystal cut her fingertip, but she did not even feel it. Her heart stopped for a second and then started beating erratically again, thumping against her ribs like a trapped bird. "No, please, no," she thought. "I need this job. Nana needs the oxygen." Caleb stood up, swaying. The crowd parted, backing away as if he were contagious. The show was getting interesting. "Sir, do you need anything?" Melody whispered, not daring to lift her head. She looked at his patent leather shoes, shiny and expensive, stained by a drop of drink. "I need you to get out of my way." Caleb advanced, but stopped. A cruel idea, born of alcohol and humiliation, crossed his mind. He looked at the vault. He looked at the cleaner. "No, wait, come here." "Sir, I am so sorry. I was just leaving." Melody tried to back away, but hit her back against the pillar. "I told you to come here." Caleb grabbed her arm. His fingers squeezed her bicep with unnecessary force. Melody let out a muffled groan. The silver tray she was holding fell to the floor with a metallic clatter that silenced the foyer completely. "Caleb, behave yourself!" Vivian shouted from the stage, but she did not come down. She wanted to see how far he would sink. If this damn technology does not recognize the owner. Caleb dragged Melody through the middle of the foyer. She stumbled over her own feet, her old rubber sneakers squeaking on the polished marble. Maybe it will recognize the trash. Let us see if the machine prefers the smell of bleach and poverty. No, please! Melody was crying now. Hot tears streamed down, cleaning the soot from her face. I didn't do anything. Let me go, sir, please! She looked at the guests, pleading with her eyes. She saw faces turned away, glasses raised, smirks. Nobody moved. To them, she was not a woman being assaulted. It was a curious scene, an exotic detail at a boring party. Caleb pushed her against the cold metal of the vault. The smell of whiskey on his breath was nauseating. "Put your hand on it," he ordered, pointing to the biometric reader that pulsed a cold blue light. "My hand is dirty. There's blood. It will stain." Melody sobbed, her whole body trembling. In her mind, staining the vault meant termination for cause. It meant losing her Nana's medical coverage. It meant death. "Damn the dirt!" Caleb yelled, his saliva flying. He grabbed her thin wrist. Melody's hand looked like a child's in his. He forced her palm against the sensor glass. The cut on Melody's finger opened further with the pressure, leaving a clear red stain on the pristine surface. Caleb held her hand there, his teeth clenched, waiting for the error beep. He already had the words prepared in his head. "See? Not even the machine wants you here. Get out of my house!" He wanted to humiliate her, to feel, if only for a second, powerful again. The sensor blinked. Blue, then yellow. The foyer held its breath. Beep. It was not the harsh sound of an error. It was a melodic sound. A major chord, soft, welcoming, green light. The noise that followed was heavy and mechanical. Titanium locks, thick as human arms, retracted into the steel wall. The vacuum was broken with a hiss of compressed air. The 2-ton door began to swing open. Caleb released Melody's arm, as if he had received a high-voltage electric shock. He recoiled, stumbling over his own feet, almost falling to a seated position. His eyes were wide, his mouth open in a silent "oh" of disbelief. Melody stood still, her hand still in the air, suspended, as if she were asking for help. She looked at the green light with absolute terror. "I broke it," she whispered, her voice failing. "My God, I broke his safe." The silence in the foyer was so dense that one could hear the ice melting in the champagne buckets. No one blinked. Vivian, on the stage, let the glass slip from her fingers. The crystal shattered on the floor. But no one looked. Everyone looked at the cleaner and at the open safe. Caleb swallowed hard. Sobriety hit him with the force of a truck. The world stopped spinning. He looked at Melody. The woman was huddled, her uniform stained with blood and tears. And then he looked into the dark interior of the safe. Inside, illuminated by an automatic LED light, there were no stacks of money. There were no gold bars. There was only an envelope, a brown, old envelope with worn edges. Caleb took a step forward, his legs trembling. He entered the vault. The smell inside was of old paper and kept secrets. He picked up the envelope. On the front, written with a blue fountain pen in a firm handwriting that Caleb knew from the company's old contracts, it read, "To my sole heir, to my daughter, Melody." Time stopped. Caleb read the sentence again and again. The letters seemed to dance before him. Daughter, Melody. He turned slowly. Melody was still there, hugging her own body, waiting for the screams, waiting for the police. "Who are you?" Caleb asked, his voice coming out in a hoarse whisper. Vivian reacted first. Her predatory instinct spoke louder than the shock. She ran down the stage stairs, almost falling flat on her face, her heels clattering furiously. "This is a trick!" she shrieked, her shrill voice cutting through the air. "It's a scam. This woman is a criminal. Look at her." Vivian pointed an accusing finger at Melody, her red nails looking like claws. "She used a magnet, a hacker. She hacked the system." Vivian lunged at Melody, her eyes filled with pure hatred. "Where is the device? Where did you hide it? In your glove? I don't have anything. Melody recoiled, crying loudly now. I swear on my grandmother's health. Security! Vivian bellowed, a vein throbbing in her neck. Arrest this tramp! She is stealing my family's inheritance. 3 large men, dressed in black, started running towards the vault. The sound of their heavy footsteps echoed like thunder. Melody saw the men. She saw the hatred in Vivian's eyes. She saw Caleb's paralyzed confusion. A primal instinct, inherited from a lifetime of street survival, took over her. Run or die. She spun her slender body and bolted. Get her! Vivian yelled. Melody was fast. Years of cleaning 3 houses a day, chasing buses, climbing hills in the slums. She had agility. She ducked, dodging the arm of a waiter who tried to grab her. She leaped over a low table, knocking over expensive canapes. Close the doors! Someone yelled. But Melody knew that house better than its owners. She cleaned the corners. Nobody saw. She knew the kitchen service door, behind the industrial refrigerator, had a broken lock because she herself had asked for it to be fixed 3 times, and nobody listened. She slid into the kitchen, pushed the startled cook, and threw herself against the metal door. It gave way. The cold night air hit her face along with the torrential rain. Melody did not stop. She ran into the darkness of the garden, her feet sinking into the mud, her grey uniform turning black with water and dirt. Inside, Caleb still held the envelope. He tore it with trembling hands. The paper gave way. A Polaroid photo fell into his hand. The photo showed the feared Mr. Sterling, the richest man in the state, sitting on a wooden park bench. He was smiling. A genuine smile Caleb had never seen in official photos. On his lap, a girl of about 3, with crooked pigtails and a simple cotton dress. The girl was holding a melting ice cream. Behind the photo, a date and a phrase. Melody and I, the happiest day of my life. Caleb looked at the door through which Melody had fled. The image of her hand being crushed by him, the blood on the glass, the cry of despair. Guilt hit him like a physical punch to the stomach. He bent his knees, almost falling. You are a monster, Caleb, he whispered to himself. You just attacked the owner of this house. What are you waiting for? Vivian appeared beside him, snatching the envelope from his hand. Let's go after her. She stole company documents. Caleb saw the greed in his ex-mother-in-law's eyes. He saw how she did not even look at the photo, only at the will papers. He realized with a chilling clarity that Vivian knew. She had always known. He snatched the papers back from her hand violently. Don't touch that, he growled. Vivian recoiled, surprised by his tone. You are drunk, Caleb. Give that to me. Caleb did not answer. He put the envelope in his inside jacket pocket, close to his racing heart. He turned and ran, not to help Vivian, but to stop her. He crossed the marble foyer, ignoring the calls, and went down to the underground garage. His silver Porsche was there, a powerful machine whose payments he could barely afford. He got in, threw the key in the ignition, and the engine roared, waking like a metal beast. He peeled out, speeding up the ramp, almost scraping the side against the guardhouse. The rain outside was a biblical deluge. Visibility was 0. The windshield wipers worked frantically, but the world was a blur of distorted lights and black shadows. Caleb drove with one hand on the wheel and the other wiping cold sweat from his forehead. Where would she go? Where does a person without a car, without money, go on a night like this? Bus stop, he thought. The main avenue is 2 miles away. He floored it. The car hydroplaned for a second. Caleb's heart leaped into his throat, but he regained control. Up ahead, under the weak yellowish light of a flickering street lamp, he saw the huddled figure. Melody was sitting on the metal bench at the bus stop, her knees pulled to her chest, her head down. She looked like an abandoned child. The rain fell on her mercilessly. Caleb braked sharply. The car stopped inches from a giant puddle, splashing a fan of dirty water into the air. Melody let out a scream and jumped up, ready to run into the bushes. Caleb opened the door and stepped out into the rain. His expensive suit was soaked in 2 seconds. "Melody!" he shouted. "No!" she yelled back, retreating into the darkness. "Leave me alone. I'm not going back there." "Wait!" Caleb raised his hands, showing his empty palms. "I didn't come to take you back there. I came to get you out of here." "Liar!" she sobbed, her voice fading into the sound of thunder. "You're her friend. You hurt me. I know, I am an idiot." Caleb stepped forward, water streaming down his face, mixing with the tears of shame he could not hold back. "But you need to listen to me. Vivian called the cleaners." Melody stopped. The term cleaners sounded strange, but the terror in Caleb's voice was real. "Get in the car, Melody," he pleaded, moving closer. "They are not going to arrest you. They are going to erase you. You are Sterling's daughter." Melody looked at him as if he were crazy. "My father died on the job site," she stammered. "My mother said—" "Your mother lied to protect you." Caleb pulled the Polaroid photo from his pocket, shielding it from the rain with his cupped hand. "Look, it is you!" Melody narrowed her eyes. In the dim light, she saw the man in the photo, the face, the smile. It was a very old memory, almost a dream, the smell of tobacco and mint, a piano melody. A shiver that was not from the cold ran down her spine. "Get in the car, please." Caleb extended his hand. "If that vault opened, you are the only person Vivian fears." Before she could answer, the sound of a V8 engine ripped through the night. Caleb looked back. 2 blinding xenon headlights appeared around the bend, a black armored SUV without license plates. "Get down!" Caleb lunged at Melody, knocking her into the mud behind the concrete bench of the bus stop. Bang, bang, bang! 3 shots. The sound was dry, muffled by the rain, but the impact was real. The rear window of Caleb's Porsche exploded, showering shards of glass onto the wet asphalt. Sparks flew from the bodywork where a bullet ricocheted. Melody screamed, covering her ears, her face buried in the wet dirt. "Let's go." Caleb pulled her by the collar of her soaked uniform. He dragged her to the passenger door of the Porsche, which was open like a shield. He threw her into the car. Melody fell onto the caramel leather, getting mud everywhere, but Caleb did not care. He jumped into the driver's seat, slammed the door, and put the car in reverse. The black SUV was coming head-on, accelerating to hit them, to crush them. Caleb turned the steering wheel all the way to the left and stomped on the accelerator. The Porsche spun in a perfect handbrake turn on the wet asphalt, escaping the head-on collision by inches. The SUV's bumper scraped the side of the sports car with a screech of metal against metal that made Melody's teeth ache. They sped down the avenue. "Put on your seatbelt!" Caleb yelled, his eyes fixed on the rearview mirror. The SUV was making a U-turn. Melody fumbled with trembling hands, trying to find the seatbelt buckle. Her fingers slipped. She looked back. The black metal monster was growing in the broken glass. She could see the silhouette of a man with a gun in the sunroof. "They are going to kill us," she screamed. "Not today!" Caleb gritted his teeth. He turned into a narrow alley, going the wrong way, knocking over trash cans. The car bounced violently. Melody hit her head on the window, but the pain was suppressed by adrenaline. Caleb drove like a maniac for 20 minutes, cutting corners, running red lights, weaving through abandoned industrial neighborhoods where the elite never set foot. The sound of rain drumming on the car roof was deafening, mixed with the wind rushing in through the shattered rear window, bringing water and cold into the luxurious cabin. Finally, he stopped the car in a dark underground garage, 3 stories below ground, in a downtown commercial building. He turned off the engine. The heavy silence returned, broken only by their ragged breathing and the ticking of the hot engine cooling down. Caleb unbuckled his seatbelt and turned to Melody. She was huddled in the corner, hugging her knees. Her uniform was torn at the shoulder. Her wet hair clung to her face. There was blood on her hand and mud on her cheek. She was trembling so hard that the car seat vibrated with her. "Are you hurt?" Caleb asked, his voice soft, unrecognizable compared to the man who had been shouting in the foyer. Melody did not answer. She stared at the car's dashboard, catatonic. "Melody?" He touched her shoulder. She recoiled sharply, hitting her back against the door. "Don't touch me," she hissed. You almost broke my hand. And now, gunshots." "I am sorry." Caleb raised his hands. "I am sorry for everything. I want to leave." She tried to open the door, but the child lock was activated. "Open this! I want my Nana!" "You cannot go home," Caleb said firmly. "Vivian must already have your address. Those men, they will not stop. If you show up at your Nana's house, you put her in their crosshairs." Melody stopped struggling with the doorknob. The reality of the phrase hit her like a rock. My Nana. Her eyes filled with fresh tears. She can't walk. She needs her 11 o'clock medicine. "We'll figure something out." Caleb took his cell phone from his pocket. The screen was cracked, but it worked. "Let's go up. I have an apartment up here. Nobody knows about it, not even Vivian." They went up in the service elevator. Melody refused to stay near him. She stayed in the opposite corner of the metal cabin, watching his every move. The apartment was a duplex penthouse, but it was empty. No furniture except for a leather couch and a glass table. It looked like a place where no one lived. Cold, lonely. "Here." Caleb tossed her a clean towel. "Dry yourself off. You'll catch pneumonia." Melody held the towel, but did not dry herself. "Call them." She pointed at his cell phone. "Call Nana's house. I need to know if she's okay." Caleb hesitated, but unlocked the device and handed it to her. Melody dialed the landline number she knew by heart. Her fingers left mud marks on the touchscreen. It rang. Once. Twice. "Ring. Ring. Answer, Nana. Please," she whispered, closing her eyes. On the third ring, the line was answered, but there was no usual, "Hello, my dear." There was only the sound of heavy breathing, and in the background, very faintly, the unmistakable hiss of her grandmother's oxygen machine. "Shh! Clack! Shh! Clack!" "Nana?" Melody called. "Grandma Betty is indisposed," a male voice replied. Deep, too calm. "She said she's waiting for her granddaughter to take her medicine." Melody felt her blood run cold. The world went black at the edges. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice cracking. "What are you doing there?" "We are waiting for you, Melody," the man replied. "The boss sent word that if you do not show up in half an hour with what you stole, the oxygen machine might suffer a technical accident." The line went dead. Melody let her cell phone slip from her hand. It hit the wooden floor with a dull thud. She looked at Caleb. The terror in her eyes was something he would never forget. "They are there," she whispered, her voice dead. "They are going to cut off my Nana's oxygen." The phone slipped from Melody's fingers and hit the polished wood floor of the penthouse with a dry crack. It sounded like a bone breaking. "They are there." Her voice failed, fading in her constricted throat. "At my Nana's house." Caleb, who had just locked the armored door, spun around instantly. He saw Melody turn transparent. Not pale, transparent. The strength she had shown during the escape had evaporated. "What did they say?" Caleb quickly stepped forward, holding her by the arms before she collapsed. "Melody, what did they say?" "The oxygen." She was trembling so much that her teeth chattered audibly. "The man said if I do not turn myself in, he will turn off the machine. She does not breathe on her own, Caleb. 5 minutes. She will die in 5 minutes without the machine." Melody tried to push Caleb away, her animal instinct for protection taking over. "Get out of the way! Open the door! I have to go!" "No!" Caleb held her firmly, using his body weight to block her. "You are not leaving here. It is a trap. It is my Nana!" Melody screamed, and the scream came out ragged, full of pain. "Nay, she is all I have. I do not care about your vault. I do not care about the money. I will give it all back. They do not want the money, Melody. They want to erase you." Caleb shook her, trying to make his voice cut through her panic. If you walk out that door without a plan, you will die on the sidewalk, and your nana will die 5 minutes later. That man will not leave any witnesses." The brutal logic of the sentence hit Melody like a slap. She stopped struggling. Her body went limp in his arms, and she slid to the floor, burying her face in hands stained with mud and blood. "What do I do?" she sobbed, muffled. "Oh my God, what do I do?" Caleb knelt beside her. His heart pounded in his throat, but he forced his breathing to calm. He needed to be the brain in this situation, because she was all heart. "How much time?" he asked, checking his watch. "How much time did he give you?" "Half an hour," Melody whispered. He said Vivian wants to see me at Sterling Manor in half an hour." "Half an hour." Caleb ran a hand through his wet hair. "Sterling Manor is 20 minutes from here if I hurry. We have 10 minutes. 10 minutes for what?" Melody raised her red, swollen eyes. "To pray, to think, so we don't walk into a slaughterhouse like cattle." Caleb stood up and went to the mirrored bar cabinet. He grabbed a first aid kit. "First, give me your hand." "We don't have time for a bandage." Melody tried to stand, but her legs gave out. "Give me your hand." Caleb's voice was harsh, but his eyes pleaded. "You're bleeding all over my rug. If you pass out from pain in front of Vivian, it's over." Melody hesitated, but extended her right hand. Her palm was deeply cut, dried blood mixed with the grime from their escape. Caleb sat on the floor again, facing her. His suit, which cost 5 years of her salary, was ruined, stained with mud. He didn't seem to care. When the antiseptic touched the wound, Melody hissed and pulled her arm away. Caleb held it firm, but with a gentleness that did not match the man who had yelled at her at the party. "I am sorry," he murmured, cleaning the cut with gauze. "I did this. I hurt you." Melody looked at him. Really looked. She saw the lines of fatigue around his eyes, the slight tremor in his hands. "Why are you helping me?" she asked, her voice hoarse. "You are part of her family. You could have turned me in and kept the inheritance. No one would have known." Caleb stopped. He looked at the fingerprint on her finger, the key to the empire. "I spent 10 years trying to prove I deserved a seat at that table," he said without looking at her. "I endured Vivian calling me trash, my wife cheating on me, all to be accepted." He finished the dressing and looked into her eyes. "Today, when I saw you protecting that photo in the rain, instead of grabbing a jewel or money, I realized I am the poor one here, and you are the only real thing that has appeared in my life." A heavy silence fell in the room. It was not romantic. It was dense. It was the silence of two people at rock bottom. Suddenly, the TV on the wall turned on by itself. The breaking news alert flashed red. Caleb and Melody looked at the screen. Vivian's image appeared. She was at the gate of the manor, under black umbrellas held by security guards, surrounded by reporters. She was crying, perfect tears. "A moment of absolute terror," Vivian said, her voice thick with emotion. "My employee, Melody, whom I trusted," she snapped. "She was drugged, aggressive. She injured my son-in-law, Caleb, and forced him to drive at gunpoint. Caleb is missing. He is a hostage of this unstable woman." Melody opened her mouth, gasping for air. "Lies," she pointed at the screen. "I never held a weapon." "She is turning the tables," Caleb said, his eyes fixed on his mother-in-law. "She is creating the narrative. If the police kill you now, it is self-defense to save the hostage." On the screen, Melody's mugshot appeared. An unflattering, sad photo. "Caleb, if you are listening to me." Vivian looked at the camera. "We will save you, darling. Hold on tight." Caleb grabbed the remote and angrily turned off the TV. The plastic cracked in his hand. Viper. "There is no way out." Melody curled up, hugging her knees. "If I go, she kills me and says I resisted. If I do not go, she kills my nana. There is a way out." Caleb knelt, holding her shoulders. "The document. Your father's letter. It is the only weapon we have. If we give this to the federal police or to the press..." Vivian goes down. "There is no time, Caleb." Melody stood up, limping to the window. The rain beat against the glass as if trying to get in. "There are 15 minutes left. My Nana cannot wait for a legal process. That man is going to turn off the machine." "There has to be something else," Caleb insisted, pacing back and forth. "The letter said something. A clue. The final proof is where the music never dies." "What does that mean?" "Think, Melody. Did your father tell you anything, your mother?" "I do not know," Melody screamed, desperate. "My mother hated talking about him. She said he was a coward who abandoned us. The letter says he loved you, that he protected you. Try to remember. A memory. Anything." Melody closed her eyes, pressing her temples. The pressure was unbearable. "I only have one memory of him," she whispered. "I must have been 3 years old. It was a dark room, the smell of wax and old wood. There was a piano, huge, brown." Caleb stopped. "A brown piano?" he asked. "The 1920 Steinway?" "I do not know piano brands," Melody continued, lost in memory. "He was playing a sad song. He was crying. He stopped, picked me up and said, 'Daughter, if one day everything turns dark, remember that the music never dies in here.'" "And he tapped his chest?" Caleb asked. "No." Melody opened her eyes. "He tapped the wood of the piano." Caleb's eyes widened. "That is it." He grabbed her arms. "The piano, the brown piano is still there." "What?" "At Sterling Manor, in the old study that Vivian locked up. She used to say that piano was old and ugly, but she never threw it away because it is worth a fortune. It became a storage room." "So what?" Melody asked, not understanding. "The evidence is where the music never dies." "Your father hid something inside the piano, a recording, document, something that will destroy Vivian for good." "That doesn't matter now." Melody pulled away from him. "I'm not going on a treasure hunt in an old piano while my Nana is suffocating." She ran to the door. "Melody, wait!" Caleb tried to block her way. "Let's go together. I'll go through the back, try to find the evidence while you buy time." "No!" Melody yelled. "If she sees you with me, she'll know you're not a hostage. She'll know you're on my side, and she'll kill you too." "I don't care." "I care!" Melody yelled, and the confession hung in the air. "If you die, who will tell the truth? Who will show the letter to the world? You're the only witness, Caleb." She was right, and Caleb hated it. He hated being protected by the cleaner he had humiliated. "You can't go alone," he whispered. "I'm used to life beating me down, Caleb." She smiled, a broken, sad smile. "I can take it." Before he could react, Melody approached. In a desperate farewell impulse, she held his face and kissed him. It was not a movie kiss. It was quick, salty with tears, tasting of blood from a cut lip. It was a kiss that said, "Thank you" and "goodbye" at the same time. Caleb stood paralyzed. Taking advantage of his shock, Melody pulled back, turned the key in the lock, and opened the door. "Stay alive," she said, and ran out. "Melody!" Caleb ran after her, but the service elevator door was already closing. He saw her face one last time through the gap. Before the metal shut, he punched the elevator door. "Damn it!" He ran back to the room. The envelope with the DNA test and the letter was on the table. If he were caught with that, Vivian would destroy everything. He needed to hide the evidence and get back to the fight. He grabbed a fake encyclopedia from the bar shelf, volume M, tucked the envelope inside and put it back on the shelf. "I will come for you," he promised the empty room, "even if I have to burn that house down." The rain had dwindled to a fine, icy drizzle when Melody arrived at Sterling Manor. The gate stood open, like a mouth waiting for its prey. She limped up the marble staircase. Her body ached, but fear for her Nana numbed everything. The main door was unlocked. Melody entered. The hall was empty. The vault at the back was closed again. "I'm here," she yelled, her voice echoing. "Release my Nana." Punctual. The voice came from the stairs. Vivian descended step by step, holding a glass of wine. She had changed from her party dress into a black silk robe. She looked like a widowed queen. "Where is she?" Melody asked, trembling. "The man on the phone? Rocco. He is awaiting my command. His finger is on the kill switch." "I came alone. Caleb ran away." "I have nothing." Melody spread her arms. "Now call him. Tell him to get out of there." Vivian stopped on the last step. She looked at Melody with pure disgust. "Do you think you're in a position to negotiate, cleaner?" Vivian snapped her fingers. Two armed men emerged from the shadows of the hallway. "Search the garden. If Caleb is out there, bring him in. Alive." The men left. "Now, let's get down to business." Vivian walked up to Melody. "You're going to record a video. You're going to confess that you faked the DNA. You're going to say you're a con artist and that Caleb is your victim. What if I don't? Then Nana dies. And then you die because you broke into my house and I have a registered weapon. Self-defense." Melody knew it was true. She looked at the cell phone Vivian was holding up. "All right, I'll record it." Vivian smiled and pressed record. "Say it." Melody Smith. Melody Smith." Melody looked at the lens. "I confess that I am Arthur Sterling's daughter, and that woman is a murderer." Vivian lowered her phone, furious. "You bitch!" She raised her hand to strike, but sirens blared outside. Red and blue lights flooded the room. Vivian smiled, the devil's smile. "The cavalry has arrived." She ran to a table, grabbed a heavy diamond necklace, and forcefully shoved it inside Melody's bra. Caught red-handed, aggravated robbery. The police burst through the door, which was already open. "Police, hands up!" Vivian threw herself to the floor, screaming, "Help, she's armed! She robbed me!" Melody was thrown to the floor, her face pressed against the cold marble. An officer cuffed her hands behind her back, pressing on the cut made by the vault. She cried out in pain. At that moment, Caleb ran into the hall. He was dirty, wet, and out of breath. "Melody!" he yelled, trying to get past the officers. "Caleb!" Vivian ran and clung to him. "Thank goodness you got away from her." Caleb looked at Vivian. He felt her embrace like a snake's. He saw Mr. Harrington, the family lawyer, whispering something to the detective. If he spoke now, if he fought, he would be arrested as an accomplice. And the evidence on the apartment shelf would be lost forever. He needed to be free to fight. He looked at Melody being dragged away. Her eyes pleaded, "Help me!" Caleb stopped struggling. He went limp. "It's," he said, loud enough for Melody to hear. "I'm fine. It's over." Melody heard. She saw him give up. Her heart stopped. The patrol car door slammed shut. The cell was cold and smelled of mildew. Melody was huddled in the corner, wearing a rough orange jumpsuit. They had taken her clothes. The diamond necklace had been the final piece of evidence. She did not know what time it was. She did not know if Nana was alive. The bars opened. "Visitor," the guard said. It was not a lawyer. It was Vivian, impeccable, perfumed. She entered the cell as if she owned the prison. "Comfortable?" she asked. "My Nana." Melody stood up. "She's alive, for now. I sent Rocco away. I do not need to kill anyone if you stay quiet." Vivian took her cell phone from her pocket. "But I came to show you something. It is live right now." She turned the screen toward Melody. It was Caleb. He was sitting in an armchair in the manor, clean, wearing a new suit. He was speaking into several microphones. "It was horrible," Caleb said in the video, without looking at the camera. "I tried to help her. I gave her a job. But she was obsessed. She invented this paternity story. She drugged me. I did not know what I was doing." Melody felt her legs give out. She fell to her knees, looking at the small screen. "He is a liar," she whispered. "He is a survivor, dear," Vivian laughed, putting away her cell phone. "Money protects money. He returned to the nest. And you You will rot here." Vivian turned and left, her high heels clicking on the concrete hallway. Melody was left alone, the image of Caleb lying burned in her mind. The kiss had been a lie. Everything was a lie. She leaned her forehead against the cold wall and screamed, a scream of pain, of hatred that echoed through the entire prison. At Sterling Manor, Caleb turned off the TV where his recorded interview was playing. He went to the bathroom and vomited. He wiped his mouth, looked in the mirror, and saw a man who hated himself. "Hang in there, Melody," he whispered to his reflection. "Just a little longer." He left the bathroom and looked at the dark hallway, at the locked door of the old study, where the brown piano waited. The hunt was just beginning. 3 days, 72 hours. That was how long Melody had been incarcerated, but it felt like 72 years. The dorms of the Women's Correctional Facility were a damp concrete hole, designed to break the human spirit. The smell was a constant mix of sour sweat, mold, and cheap industrial disinfectant that burned the nostrils. There were 6 metal bunk beds bolted to the wall for 12 women. Melody slept on the floor, on a thin mat that smelled of dried urine. She sat with her back against the cold wall, her knees pulled to her chest. The orange uniform was too big, rough against her skin. The cut on her right hand, the hand that opened the vault, throbbed, inflamed, red at the edges. No one had changed the dressing. "Hey, Cinderella!" a hoarse voice called. Melody did not lift her head. It was Big Mama, a huge woman with neck tattoos who ran that cell block. "We saw your little boyfriend on TV again today," Big Mama laughed, and the other inmates joined the chorus like hyenas. "He said he's going to sue you for emotional distress. He said you traumatized his family." Melody narrowed her eyes, trying to block out the image. Caleb. The name tasted like ashes and bile in her mouth. "He's not my boyfriend," Melody whispered, her voice hoarse from crying so much and then from being silent for so long. "Oh, that's right. He's the victim." Big Mama kicked Melody's foot, not hard enough to break it, but to humiliate her. "Get up, princess. It's cleaning time. Guess who's cleaning the toilets today?" Melody lifted her head. Her eyes, once full of fear, now held something new, a hard, cold layer like steel tempered in fire. The bottom of the well has a solid floor, and she had hit it. "I'll clean them," Melody said, slowly getting up. The pain in her body was constant, but she used it as fuel. "I know how to clean better than anyone here." "Look at her, she's proud," Big Mama sneered. Melody grabbed the bucket and mop. As she walked to the filthy bathroom, she was not thinking about the grime. She was thinking about Caleb. She was thinking about the kiss. She was thinking about how he had looked her in the eyes and promised protection, only to then throw her to the wolves to save his own skin. "You lied," she thought, scrubbing the floor angrily, turning the cleaning into an act of war. "You used me. I will get out of here, and I will make you pay. You and that witch." Hatred was the only warm thing in that place, and it was what kept her going. At Sterling Manor, the atmosphere was the opposite. Crystal chandeliers lit, classical music playing softly, the smell of roasted meat with fine herbs coming from the kitchen. Caleb was seated at the head of the dining table, the same table where days ago he had been humiliated. Now he was the guest of honor, the prodigal son. Vivian was seated to his right, radiant. "The roast is divine, don't you think, dear?" she asked, slicing the bloody meat with surgical precision. Caleb looked at his plate. The rare meat oozed red juice. He felt his stomach churn, but he forced a smile. He had practiced that smile in the mirror for hours, until it looked real. "It's perfect, Vivian," he replied, bringing the fork to his mouth. The food tasted like cardboard. "You always had good taste in hiring chefs." "And lawyers," she added, raising her wineglass in a solitary toast. "Mr. Harrington said the case is won. That creature will get at least 15 years. Breaking and entering, robbery, unlawful imprisonment. The judge has already signed the pre-trial detention order. Tomorrow's trial is just a show for the press. Caleb gripped the crystal glass so tightly he was afraid he would break it in his hand. 15 years, he repeated, testing the weight of the words. That's a long time. Vivian stopped eating. Her dark eyes, cold as a vault, fixed on him. That is not enough for what she did. She tried to destroy our family, Caleb. She tried to tarnish my daughter's memory, and she almost took you down with her. You do not feel sorry for her, do you? It was a test. Caleb knew. Vivian was watching his every micro-expression, searching for a trace of weakness, of loyalty to the cleaner. He took a deep breath, accessing the darkest part of himself, the part that learned to lie to survive in that world of snakes. Pity? Caleb let out a dry, cruel laugh. I feel disgust. She tricked me. She made me sleep on the floor of an empty apartment, afraid to die while she pretended to be the helpless victim. I want her to rot, Vivian. Vivian smiled. She relaxed her shoulders. She believed him. Her vanity prevented her from seeing that anyone could deceive her. That is my son-in-law, she toasted, touching her glass to his, to family, and to the money that keeps family together. To family, Caleb echoed, drinking the wine that went down, burning like acid. After dinner, Vivian went to her room. I have to get my beauty rest for court tomorrow, she said. Caleb waited. He stayed in the living room, pretending to read a financial newspaper. He heard her footsteps fade upstairs. He heard her bedroom door close. He waited another 30 minutes. The grandfather clock in the hall struck 2 in the morning. The house was absolutely silent. The storm had passed, leaving only a howling wind outside. Caleb stood up. He took off his leather shoes to make no noise. In his socks, he walked down the dark hallway toward the west wing of the manor, the dead wing, where Arthur Sterling's old study was located. The door was locked, of course, but Caleb had lived in that house for 10 years. He knew where the spare keys were, in a Chinese vase in the hallway, which the cleaning crew ignored by Vivian's order. He fumbled inside the vase. His fingers touched the cold metal of the master key. He opened the door. The rusty hinges let out a sharp groan. Screech! Caleb froze. The sound seemed like a gunshot in the silent house. He looked at the stairs. Nothing. Nobody. He stepped inside and closed the door behind him, turning the key. The office smelled of stagnant time. Dust, old wood, ancient cigars. The furniture was covered with white sheets, looking like ghosts in a crypt. And in the corner, under a heavy velvet cover, it was there. The brown monster. The Steinway piano. Caleb pulled off the cover. Dust rose, making him hold back a sneeze. The piano was majestic, even dirty. The dark mahogany wood gleamed under the faint light of Caleb's cell phone flashlight. The final proof is where the music never dies. Caleb looked at the instrument. Where to hide something in a piano? He opened the key cover. The ivory keys were yellowed. He ran his finger over them without pressing, afraid that any sound would wake the witch upstairs. "Where are you, Arthur?" he whispered. He began to search. He looked under the bench. Nothing. He looked behind the music stand. Nothing. He lay on the floor, illuminating the underside of the piano. The soundboard was covered in cobwebs. He ran his hand along the entire length of the rough wood. Nothing. Despair began to set in. What if melody was wrong? What if it was a metaphor? Think, Caleb. He slapped his forehead. Where the music never dies. Music is born on the keys, but it lives in the strings, in the soundbox. He stood up and opened the top lid of the piano, the wing. The steel and copper strings gleamed. It was a labyrinth of metal and felt. He shined a light inside. He saw the hammers. He saw the dampers. He began to feel along the inner sides where the curved wood embraced the bass strings. His fingers brushed against something that was not wood, something smooth, plastic. It was taped with black adhesive tape deep inside, near the lowest string, where a tuner's hand would never reach. Caleb stretched out his arm. His jacket caught, limiting his movement. He took off his jacket and threw it on the floor. He stretched out his arm again, the wood scraping his skin up to the elbow. His fingers brushed against the edge of the tape. He pulled. The old tape, dried out by the years, came loose with a dry snap. Caleb brought his hand into the light. It was an SD memory card, one of those old, large, black ones. It was wrapped in a piece of plastic wrap to protect it from moisture. Caleb's heart pounded so hard he thought he was going to have a heart attack. He had the weapon. He had the silver bullet. Suddenly the doorknob turned. Caleb froze. The door was locked, but someone was trying to open it. "Caleb?" Vivian's voice came from the hallway, muffled, sleepy, but suspicious. "Are you there?" The panic was icy. If she came in, if she saw the uncovered piano, if she saw the card, it was over. Melody would die in prison. He would die in an accident on the stairs. "Caleb, I heard a noise," Vivian insisted. Her key went into the lock. Caleb looked around. There was nowhere to hide. He did the only thing he could. He put the SD card inside his sock, at his ankle. He threw the velvet cover back over the piano haphazardly, covering the keys. He picked up his jacket from the floor. The key turned in the lock. The door opened. Vivian stood there in a silk nightgown, holding a heavy silver candelabra as if it were a club. She turned on the office light. Caleb stood in the middle of the room, holding his jacket, looking like he had been caught red-handed. "What are you doing here?" Vivian asked, her eyes sweeping the room. She looked at the covered piano. The cover was crooked. Caleb forced his brain to work. "I was looking for a drink," Caleb said, raising his hands. "The bar in the living room was empty. I remembered that Arthur used to hide some good brandy here." Vivian narrowed her eyes. She entered the room, walking slowly like a predator inspecting its territory. "A drink? At 2 in the morning?" "I can't sleep, Vivian," Caleb said, letting his voice tremble, using the real fear he felt. "I close my eyes and I see that woman, the gun, the car crashing. I need to drink to black out." He used the trauma as a shield. Vivian stopped in front of him. She looked at the piano. Then she looked at Caleb. The smell of dust was in the air. "You should have asked me," she said, her voice soft but her eyes cold. "I have excellent sleeping pills, pills that erase any problem." The veiled threat hung in the air. She reached out and touched his face. "You are sweating, dear." "It is the heat. This room is stuffy." Caleb took a step back, subtly. The card in his sock burned against his skin. "Let us get out of here," Vivian said, grabbing his arm tightly. "This place gives me the creeps." Arthur had a heavy energy. She pulled him out. Caleb had to walk normally, praying the card would not slip, would not make a sound. She locked the door. She put the key in her robe pocket. "Go to bed, Caleb. Tomorrow is the big day. You need to look good to see justice served." "I will," Caleb said. "Good night, Vivian." The next morning, at the Women's Correctional Facility. "Melody Smith, lawyer!" the guard yelled. Melody jumped up, her heart raced. "Caleb?" She was taken to the visiting room. She sat in the metal chair, handcuffed to the table. The door opened. It was not Caleb. It was a short woman, with thick glasses and a cheap suit, looking exhausted. "Good morning. I am Miss Dawson, a public defender," the woman said, sitting down and opening a thin folder. "I was assigned to your case because your private attorney did not show up." "I do not have a private attorney," Melody said, slumping in her chair. "Anyway, the situation is critical, dear. Caught red-handed, video confession, witnesses. The prosecution wants your head on a platter. 20 years. "I am innocent," Melody said, banging her handcuffs on the table. "The confession was forced. She threatened my grandmother." The attorney sighed. "Look, I have 50 cases today. The judge on this case, Judge Reynolds, dines at Vivian Sterling's house. Your word against hers, no chance. So what are you going to do for me? I got a deal. The attorney pushed a paper. You plead guilty to petty theft. They drop the kidnapping charge. You get 8 years. With luck, you will be out in 4. 4 years? Melody felt the hot tears return. My Nana will die in 4 days without me. They are going to turn off her machines. It is. Take it or leave it. If you go to trial, you lose. Sign here. Melody looked at the paper. It was surrender. It was admitting the lie. She thought of Caleb. He must be having breakfast at Sterling Manor now, laughing with his mother-in-law. I will not sign. Melody pushed the paper away. Girl, do not be stupid. I will not sign, Melody yelled, standing up. I did not steal anything. That house is mine. If I am going down, I am going down screaming the truth in that corrupt judge's face. Ms. Dawson collected the papers, annoyed. Okay, it is your call. The trial is this afternoon. Prepare to be massacred. Ms. Dawson left. Melody was alone. You will pay, Caleb, she whispered into the emptiness. One day, I will get out of here, and you will pay. Noon, 2 hours until the trial. Caleb was in the car, in the passenger seat. Vivian was driving. Vivian, Caleb said, his hand in his pocket clutching the SD card. Stop at that gas station. I need to buy cigarettes. You do not smoke. I started today. Vivian scoffed, but stopped the car. 5 minutes. Do not make me late for my show. Caleb got out. He entered the corner store and went straight to the back aisle, near the beer refrigerators. There, pretending to read a label, stood a tall, bald man in an impeccable Italian suit that cost more than the entire store. Mr. Vance, the Shark, the most expensive and feared criminal defense attorney in the state and the Sterling family's greatest enemy. Caleb stopped beside him. Did you receive my encrypted email? Caleb whispered, without looking at him. I did. Vance smiled, showing very white teeth, and I confess I am intrigued. Do you really have what you promised? Here it is. Caleb slid the SD card into the lawyer's hand. 30 years of dirt, murder, tax fraud, bribing judges, everything Arthur collected against her. Mr. Vance put the card in his pocket as if it were a diamond. And there's one more thing, Caleb continued nervously. I left the original envelope with the DNA test and Arthur's letter hidden in my apartment. It's in the M encyclopedia at the bar. Caleb handed a simple key to Mr. Vance, hidden in the cigarette pack. The apartment key. Send someone there now, before Vivian cleans the place out. That's proof of the inheritance. Understood. Mr. Vance took the key discreetly. And my payment? Mr. Vance asked. His voice held no kindness, only greed. I don't work for free, kid. Not even to take down Vivian. The Sterling Foundation, Caleb said firmly. When Melody takes over the inheritance, she will need lifelong legal protection. The contract is yours, 30% of everything we recover from Vivian. Mr. Vance whistled softly. A fortune. And the pleasure of seeing Vivian leave in handcuffs, Caleb added. Ah, that's priceless. Mr. Vance adjusted his tie. I hate that woman with all my might. She destroyed my practice 10 years ago. Today, I return the favor. Caleb saw Vivian honking outside. I have to go. I'm a prosecution witness. Don't talk to me in court. Leave it to me, Mr. Vance winked. It's going to be a show. Caleb bought a pack of cigarettes he wouldn't smoke and ran out. The bomb was set, the courthouse was packed, the press occupied every inch. The scamming cleaner case was the headline of the day. Melody was brought in, handcuffed. She wore the orange uniform. She was pale, but her head was held high. She saw Vivian in the front row, dressed in black, shedding fake tears, and she saw Caleb beside her, motionless, cold. Melody felt hatred burning in her chest. Coward. Judge Reynolds entered. He looked at Melody with clear disdain. Case State versus Melody Smith. How does the defendant plead? Not guilty. Melody said loudly, "and that woman is a liar." "The defendant will remain silent or be removed," the judge said, bored. "Where is the defense?" The public defender stood up, but before she could speak, the back door of the courthouse burst open. "The defense is here, Your Honor." Everyone turned. Mr. Vance walked down the central aisle, carrying a leather briefcase and a laptop. His presence sucked the air out of the room. Vivian stopped crying. She turned white. "Mr. Vance?" The judge frowned. "You are not listed in the records." "I just filed my power of attorney, Mr. Vance said, tossing a paper onto the judge's desk. "I am taking over Ms. Melody Smith's defense pro bono, and I request a postponement of the—" "Objection!" the prosecutor shouted. "This is a delaying tactic." "I will not postpone anything," Mr. Vance smiled, a shark smile. "In fact, I want to speed things up. I want to call the prosecution witness, Mr. Caleb Rivers." The judge looked at Vivian, who subtly shook her head, but he could not deny it. Caleb stood up and went to the chair. Melody looked at him. Her heart pounded in her throat. Why is this rich lawyer here? What is happening? The prosecutor began the questioning, trying to control the narrative. "Mr. Caleb, on the night of the 15th, the defendant broke into your home and threatened you, correct?" Caleb approached the microphone. He looked at Melody. For a fraction of a second, his guard dropped. His eyes pleaded for forgiveness. "Mr. Caleb," the prosecutor insisted. Caleb took a deep breath. "No," he said. His voice echoed in the silent courthouse. "That night Melody entered the house to clean the floor, and I assaulted her." A murmur ran through the audience. Vivian stood up, shocked. "What is he saying? He is confused." "Sit down," the judge yelled. "Proceed, witness," Mr. Vance said, smiling. "The vault opened with her fingerprint," Caleb continued, gaining strength. "Because she is Arthur Sterling's daughter. She is the owner of the house. And I was coerced into lying by the real criminal." Caleb raised his hand and pointed his finger directly at Vivian. "Vivian Sterling held me psychologically hostage. She faked the kidnapping. She planted the jewels." "Lies!" Vivian screamed, hysterical. "He has gone mad! She brainwashed him!" "Your Honor," Mr. Vance yelled, overriding the chaos, "the defense presents Exhibit A, a memory card found last night, hidden for 30 years inside a piano." Mr. Vance connected the laptop to the courthouse sound system before the judge could stop him. He pressed play. Arthur Sterling's voice, deceased for years, filled the room. It was a weak, frightened voice. "If anyone hears this, Vivian switched my medication again. She is killing me. She threatened my illegitimate daughter, Melody. I have to protect the girl." The courthouse erupted. Flashes went off. Journalists shouted questions. Chaos had set in. Melody looked at Caleb. He was smiling at her, a sad, tired but free smile. "I came back," the smile said. "I told you I would come for you." Melody felt tears stream down her face, but this time they were tears of relief. Music never dies, and neither does the truth. Arthur Sterling's voice stopped echoing through the courthouse speakers, but the effect was devastating. The courthouse, which a second before had listened in shock, now exploded in noise. "Vivian switched my medication. She is killing me." The phrase hung in the air, fueling the fire. Journalists shouted questions. Flashes fired like continuous lightning, blinding everyone. Judge Reynolds pounded the gavel frantically, but no one listened. "Order! Order in the court!" Amidst this pandemonium, Vivian stood in the spectators' bench, pale as a made-up corpse. Her hand, adorned with rings worth more than everyone's lives there, trembled violently, pointing at the laptop on Mr. Vance's table. "That is fake!" she screamed, and her voice, always so controlled and velvety, cracked. It came out sharp, shrill, ugly, cutting through the ambient noise. "It is artificial intelligence. They forged his voice. It is a plot by that two-bit lawyer." Judge Reynolds, seeing the chaos and the press broadcasting live, knew which way the wind was blowing. If he protected Vivian now, he would fall with her. "You will sit down and shut up," the judge bellowed into the microphone. "Shut up! I am Vivian Sterling. I pay your salary, Reynolds." She lost her filter. Desperation ripped off her mask of civility. A shocked "oh" rippled through the audience, overpowering the shouts. TV cameras zoomed in on Vivian's face, disfigured with hatred. "Silence!" Mr. Vance stood up, triumphant, calmly buttoning his jacket. "Your Honor, we have just heard a post-mortem confession of homicide. And I have here," he held up the SD card as if it were a sacred host, "scanned bank statements, parallel accounting spreadsheets. Oh, and before I forget," Mr. Vance pulled an old, crumpled brown envelope from his pocket. The original envelope, recovered today from Mr. Caleb's apartment, containing the authentic DNA test and Arthur Sterling's handwritten letter, the physical proof of the inheritance. The journalists in the audience looked like sharks smelling blood in the water. "Murderer!" someone shouted from the gallery. "Thief!" shouted another. Vivian looked around, spinning her body like a cornered animal. She searched for allies. She looked at the family lawyer, Mr. Harrington, but he was putting his papers into his briefcase, avoiding eye contact, ready to abandon ship. She looked at her high society friends in the front row, but they averted their gaze, pretending to fiddle with their cell phones. There was no more respect. There was no more fear. There was only disgust. The empire of appearances she had spent 30 years building brick by brick was crumbling in 30 seconds. She looked at Caleb, who was still in the witness chair. He stared at her with a cold, almost sad serenity. "You," Vivian hissed, her eyes bloodshot, "you ungrateful rat. I pulled you out of the gutter. I gave you a name. I made a man out of you. You gave me a leash, Vivian." Caleb replied into the microphone, his voice echoing clear and firm above the noise. "And I just chewed through it." Fury consumed Vivian. It was something primal. She lost the last shred of human sanity. With an animalistic scream, she leapt over the wooden barrier separating the audience from the courtroom. "I will kill you!" she shrieked, her perfect nails curved like claws. She lunged at Caleb, knocking over a chair, ignoring all dignity. "Security!" the judge yelled, standing up. Two bailiffs intercepted Vivian before she reached the stand. They held her by the arms. She struggled, kicking, her skirt riding up, her immaculate hair coming loose from its bun. "Let me go! Do you know who I am? I am Vivian Sterling. I will buy your lives. I will destroy you. You are under arrest." A federal agent who had been waiting in the back entered the scene with his badge on his chest. "Aggravated homicide, financial fraud, kidnapping, extortion, and obstruction of justice." He pulled her arms behind her with professional force. Clack! The sound of the handcuffs closing was the sweetest sound Melody had ever heard in her life. Better than any music. Melody watched everything from the defendant's bench, paralyzed. She saw the woman who had terrorized her, who had threatened her nana, being dragged out like a common criminal. Vivian screamed obscenities, spitting in the direction of the cameras, her makeup smeared by tears of rage. The mask had fallen. The monster was exposed. Judge Reynolds cleared his throat, trying to save what was left of his own reputation before the Judicial Council investigated him. "Given the new irrefutable evidence, I annul all charges against the defendant Melody Smith. Issue the immediate release order. The case is closed." He slammed the gavel and rushed to his chambers. Ms. Dawson, the public defender who had told Melody to accept the 4-year prison deal, stood agape, nervously tidying her papers. Mr. Vance went to Melody. With a small key, he unlocked her handcuffs. "You are free, girl," he said, winking. "Courtesy of Caleb. And mine, of course." Melody rubbed her wrists, marked by the metal. Her skin was red and sore, but she had never felt so light. She looked at Caleb. He slowly stepped down from the stand. He looked exhausted, as if he had aged 10 years that afternoon. He came towards her, but stopped a yard away, respecting an invisible barrier. "It is over," he said softly. Melody looked at him. Her heart was a jumble of feelings. She wanted to hug him. She wanted to kiss him and thank him. But the image of him on TV, calling her a swindler, the memory of 3 days of solitude in the cold cell, the pain was still there, throbbing like an open wound. "You left me there," she whispered, her voice trembling, tears returning. "You let me think I was alone in the world, that you had betrayed me." "I had no choice, Melody." Caleb stepped forward, but stopped when she instinctively recoiled. If Vivian had suspected for a second, she would have destroyed the evidence. She would have killed both of us. I had to be the villain so I could be the hero. "I know," she cut him off, wiping her face with the back of her dirty hand. "My head knows that, Caleb. But here—" She touched her chest, over her heart. "Here it still hurts. I was scared, very scared." Caleb lowered his head. He understood. He knew that trust is a crystal vase, easy to break, hard to mend. "Melody!" a voice shouted from the courthouse entrance. Melody turned around. In the doorway, open to the daylight, was a wheelchair pushed by a nurse. "Nana!" Melody cried. She ran. She ignored Caleb, ignored the reporters shouting questions, ignored the flashes. She ran down the central corridor and fell to her knees in front of her grandmother, hugging her legs, crying like a small child. "My girl!" Nana stroked her hair, crying too. "You're safe, thank goodness." Caleb watched the scene from afar. He saw pure love there, something he never had in the cold Sterling manor. He shoved his hands into his pockets, feeling like an intruder in that moment of happiness. Mr. Vance stopped beside him, closing his leather briefcase. "Give her time, kid. She went through hell, and you were the one who locked the door, even if it was to save her." "I know," Caleb said with a sad smile. "I was the jailer, and jailers aren't invited to the Freedom Party." He turned towards the side exit, away from the press, away from Melody. "Where are you going?" Vance asked. "Starting over," Caleb replied, without looking back. He walked out the door, alone, disappearing into the city crowd, while flashes erupted in the direction of the new millionaire heiress. 1 week later. The Sterling Manor was different, but it still seemed haunted by the echoes of the past. The heavy velvet curtains, which Vivian kept closed to protect the Persian rugs, had been opened. The afternoon sunlight streamed in, illuminating the dust that danced in the air like golden particles. Melody stood in the middle of the main hall. She wore jeans and a simple white t-shirt. No grey uniform, no orange jumpsuit. The place was hers now. The judge had been swift in transferring the assets, fearing investigation for criminal association. Vivian was in maximum security solitary confinement, without bail, her assets frozen. But the house seemed enormous and cold. The silence was deafening. Melody walked through the rooms. She passed through the dining room with its 30-seat table. She passed through the library full of books no one read. "Miss Melody?" The timid voice came from the kitchen. It was Hattie, the long-time cook, wringing her apron in her nervous hands. "Lunch is served. Would you like it in the dining room?" "In the kitchen, Hattie." Melody smiled, trying to break the tension. "And please sit with me. I can't stand eating at that enormous table by myself. I feel like an ant." Hattie smiled, relieved. The staff was terrified, thinking they would be mass-fired by the former cleaner. But Melody had gathered everyone on the first day and doubled the salary of anyone who wished to stay. "Of course, dear, I mean Miss Melody." Melody dismissed the formality with a gesture and walked to the west wing. The study, the door was open. The brown piano was there, in the corner. Someone, probably Caleb before he left, had cleaned and polished the wood. It gleamed. Melody entered and ran her hand over the piano lid. The wood was warm from the sun. "Thank you, Father," she whispered into the void. "I am sorry I hated you for so long. I did not know." On the massive oak desk in the office, there was an organized stack of documents. Contracts, shares, property deeds. Mr. Vance was handling everything, charging his 30% religiously, but doing an impeccable job of financial cleanup. But there was something that was not a legal document on top of the stack. A letter. Simple paper, folded in half. It had no stamp. It had been left there personally. Melody felt a tightness in her chest. She knew that handwriting. She opened the paper with trembling hands. Melody, I left the car and apartment keys at the building's front desk. I did not take anything that was not strictly mine, which is basically my clothes and some old books. The company is 100% in your name. Mr. Vance will explain how to sell the shares if you want to get rid of everything, or how to hire a CEO if you want to maintain the legacy. I'm so sorry. For everything, for the vault day, for hurting your hand, for the prison, for the lying interview. I know the end justified the means, but the means were cruel. And I do not want to be the memory of that cruelty in your new life. You deserve to be happy, and you deserve someone who never makes you doubt, not for a second. Goodbye, Caleb. Melody pressed the paper against her chest. A warm tear fell, staining the blue ink of the signature. He was gone. Without asking for anything, without asking for his share of his deceased wife's inheritance, which was his by law. Without asking for a job, without asking for forgiveness in person. He had punished himself. "Idiot!" she cursed, her voice choked, wiping her face angrily. "Proud coward! Do you think you can decide what I deserve?" She looked at the piano. She had everything now, money for 10 generations, the house, Nana's safety. But the silence of the mansion screamed his name. 3 months passed. The neighborhood was simple in the north part of the city, far from gated communities. Busy streets, low-rise buildings without elevators, the smell of a bakery, the sound of bus exhaust, and children playing ball in the street. Caleb was behind the counter of a used bookstore, an old dusty second-hand shop that smelled of aged paper and coffee. He wore a green apron with the name Higgins's Used Books embroidered crookedly. He was carrying a heavy box of books. "Caleb, that civil law collection you asked for is here." The owner of the used bookstore, a bald and friendly man named Mr. Higgins, shouted from the back of the store. "I'll catalog it right away, Mr. Higgins," Caleb replied, wiping the sweat from his forehead with the back of his hand. He made a minimum wage living. He lived in a 300-square-foot studio apartment with a leaky bathroom. He ate his lunch from styrofoam containers. And he had never slept so well in his life. Without Vivian's pressure, without the corporate lies, without the expensive whiskey to numb his conscience every night. He was paying for his sins, book by book, page by page. He felt clean. The doorbell chimed, announcing a customer. Ding-dong. "Welcome to..." Caleb began to say the standard phrase, lifting his head, expecting to see a student looking for a discount. The phrase died in his throat. The world stopped. Standing in the doorway, blocking the golden light of the afternoon sun, was Melody. She was different. Her hair was cut in a modern and elegant bob. Her skin glowed, healthy. Her clothes were simple, jeans and a blazer, but impeccably tailored. She looked like a businesswoman. She looked powerful, but her eyes, her brown eyes, were the same. The eyes he had seen through the bars of the cell. Caleb dropped the box of books onto the counter with a dull thud. Dust rose. "Melody, hi, Caleb." She walked in slowly, looking around with curiosity. She ran a finger over a dusty shelf, checking for grime out of habit. "So this is where the Wolf of Wall Street has been hiding." Caleb blushed. He quickly took off his apron, feeling exposed. It's honest work. I like books. I always have, but I never had time to read." "I know." She stopped in front of the counter, separated from him only by the worn wood. "I looked for you, you know. I went to your old apartment." The doorman said you returned the keys and left with just one suitcase. I went to the company. Nobody knew where you were. Mr. Vance said you dropped off the map. I wanted to give you space. Caleb lowered his eyes, unable to face her intensity. You needed time and distance from me. I'm a bad memory. That is true, Melody agreed, unyielding. I needed to. It took me a month to stop having nightmares about prison, and another month to understand the chess game you played in that courthouse. She placed her leather purse on the counter. Mr. Vance told me you gave up your share of your deceased wife's inheritance, millions of dollars. He said you signed a document stating it was dirty money. That was Vivian's money, Caleb said firmly, looking up. Everything in that house came from her crimes. I did not want a single cent that carried your father's blood or your suffering. You were left with nothing, Caleb. Zero. I kept my conscience. He held her gaze. For the first time in 10 years, I look at myself in the mirror in the morning and feel no shame for the man I see. That is worth more than the vault. Melody looked at him. She saw the truth there. She saw the man who tenderly bandaged her hand. She saw the man who protected her from the hail of bullets. I transformed the manor, she said, changing her tone. The upstairs is my home and Nana's. The downstairs, the ballroom, the office, the gardens. It became the headquarters of the Sterling Foundation. I saw it in the newspaper. Caleb smiled, a shy and proud smile. Heiress creates support center for women victims of domestic violence and injustice. It is incredible, Melody. Your father would be proud of you. It is a lot of work, she sighed, tired. Paperwork, bureaucracy, people trying to trick me all the time. I do not understand these things, Caleb. I understand cleaning, people, survival, but not contracts and investments. Caleb nodded. Mr. Vance is the shark, but he is competent. He helps you. Mr. Vance only thinks about his 30%. I need someone I truly trust. She paused, biting her lip. Someone who knows how to lie to the wolves when necessary, but who knows the truth when it matters. Caleb felt his heart race. His hands began to sweat. Melody, I cannot go back to that world. It makes me sick. It is not for that world. It is for my world. She took a paper from her purse and placed it on the counter. I fired the foundation administrator yesterday. He was siphoning money from the children's snacks. Caleb looked at the paper. It was an employment contract. Position, Executive Director of the Sterling Foundation. Salary high but fair. I need a CEO, Caleb. Someone with the courage to face powerful people. Caleb looked at the paper. Then he looked at her. Why me, after everything I put you through? Because when the gun was pointed at my head, you jumped in front. Melody reached her hand across the counter and touched his hand. Her skin was warm. And because that kiss, before I left the apartment, it was not a lie. Was it? Caleb turned his hand and held hers. The touch was electric, familiar. No. He shook his head. It was the only real thing that happened to me in those crazy days. Melody smiled, and her smile lit up that dark, used bookstore. So stop hiding among the old books, Caleb. You have work to do. The kids need you. I need you. Caleb smiled back. Months of burden lifted from his shoulders, as if he had taken off a backpack full of rocks. I have to tell Mr. Higgins he's going to be without a stock clerk. Tell him, I'll wait in the car. She turned to leave but stopped at the door, looking him up and down. Oh, Caleb. Yes. The uniform is a suit now, but no tie. I hate ties. They remind me of Vivian. Caleb laughed, a light laugh. No tie? Deal. 3 more months passed. Time flew when one wasn't suffering. The garden of Sterling Manor was unrecognizable. The dreadful Gothic statues and labyrinthine hedges that Vivian loved had been torn out. In their place, there were colorful flower beds, comfortable wooden benches, and a vibrant playground where dozens of children played. A party was happening, not a gala with champagne and snobby people speaking in hushed tones. A barbecue with live music, a lively samba band playing, the smell of grilled meat, and real people laughing loudly. Caleb was at the grill, flipping skewers with the skill of a veteran. He wore dress pants and a white shirt, but his sleeves were rolled up and he had a smudge of charcoal on his forehead. He was laughing at some joke the security guard was telling. He looked young, happy. Melody was sitting on a wooden bench with Nana beside her. Nana, now with a modern, lightweight, portable oxygen concentrator, tapped her foot to the rhythm of the music, smiling as she watched her granddaughter. "He is a good man, dear," Nana said, giving Melody a knowing nudge. "And look how well he grills the meat. That is important in a husband." Melody laughed, blushing. "Yes, Nana, he learned fast. He learns everything fast." Caleb saw Melody looking at him. He handed the tongs to the security guard and walked over to her, wiping his hands on a dish towel. "Does the director approve of the menu?" he asked, stopping in front of her, blocking the sun. "The meat is perfect, but the director is covered in charcoal." She ran her finger across his cheek, gently wiping away the black smudge. "Part of the job." He took her hand and kissed her palm. "Come with me. I want to show you something. Now, I have to give a speech to the donors soon. It will be quick, I promise." He pulled her by the hand, guiding her away from the party to the side of the house, to the external entrance of the old study. The door was open. The sound of the party was muffled there, distant. Caleb entered and went to the piano. He sat on the bench. "I did not know you played," Melody said, leaning against the doorframe, crossing her arms. "I thought you only knew how to work with spreadsheets and charts." "I did not play," Caleb said, opening the keyboard cover with reverence. "I learned in these last 3 months. I took lessons secretly at night after work." "Really? And what did you learn?" Caleb took a deep breath. He was nervous. His hands were sweating a little. It was harder than testifying in court. He began to play. It was not a complex piece by Beethoven or Mozart. It was a simple, sweet, slightly melancholic melody, but full of hope, a lullaby. Melody froze. Her smile vanished from her lips. The notes floated through the air, activating a deep, dormant memory in her brain. The dark room, the smell of wax, her father crying and playing exactly that. It was the same music, her father's music. Melody walked to the piano as if hypnotized. Tears welled up in her eyes. How did you know?" she whispered, her voice failing. "There was an old handwritten score hidden inside the piano bench," Caleb said, without stopping his playing, focused on the keys. "It was signed, 'For Melody.' Your father composed it for you. It was his way of saying he loved you." Melody put her hand over her mouth, holding back a sob. She closed her eyes and let the music wash over her, healing the last remaining wound. Her father's rejection. He loved her. The music was the proof. Caleb finished the song. The last note lingered in the air, suspended. He stood up. He took a small black velvet box from his pants pocket. "Melody," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I offered you $500 million to open a vault, and you opened it. But you opened much more than that. You opened my eyes to the truth. You opened this house to life, and you opened my heart, which had been locked and rusted for a long time." He knelt on the Persian rug. Melody laughed and cried at the same time, frantically wiping away her tears. "Caleb, you don't need to give me a diamond ring. I already have trauma with jewelry, remember?" "Vivian." Caleb opened the small box. It was not a diamond. It was a simple, delicate gold ring with a small, light blue stone. "It's not a diamond," he said, smiling. "It's aquamarine, the stone of courage and serenity, because you are the bravest woman I know, and because you brought me peace." Melody held out her hand, Her right hand, the hand that bore the thin scar from the vault's cut, the mark of her story. Melody Sterling Smith. Will you marry this former bankrupt millionaire, former hostage, current director of your foundation, and man eternally in love with you? You silly man, she said, pulling him by his shirt collar to make him stand up. I will, but on one condition. What is it? Anything. The vault stays open, forever. No secrets between us. Caleb smiled and slid the ring onto her finger. Open, forever. I promise. They kissed. It was a long, calm kiss, full of fulfilled promises. In the background, the party music from outside grew louder, mixing with the echo of the piano. The house was no longer haunted, it was alive, it was happy, and so Melody not only recovered what was rightfully hers, but built something much greater, a home. The Sterling Manor that was the scene of so much pain and greed is now a beacon of hope for those in need. And Vivian, well, the latest news says she is having plenty of time to reflect in her cell, and this time she has to clean the floor herself. It seems justice is slow but sure. And you? Did you like this story? Would you have forgiven Caleb after that courtroom drama? And what did you think of Vivian's ending? Leave your opinion here in the comments. I read them all. Do not forget to like the video and subscribe to the Stories and Audio Novels channel. Every week, we bring you a new emotion. Until next time.